So this video is going to be broken down into 3 different parts. The first part, I'm going to be showing how to do a very basic program with the Brookshear machine. The second part, I'm going to be talking about the different parts of the operating system with a graphic that I drew. And then in the third part, I'm going to be showing you a ton of basic commands that you can use in the terminal window. For the first part of this video, I'm going to be demonstrating what I did with the Brookshear machine. For reference, the instructions given were to use the Brookshear machine to add together in hex the values for the month of your birthday, the day of the birthday, and the year of your birthday, and then place them in the memory address that corresponds to 2 digits of your home address. To load the hex value XY into register 0, I use the opcode 2. My birthday is in the month of June, which is why I'm using 06. So 2006 loads 06 into register 0. So I'm going to do the exact same thing, but I'm using the hex value 10, which is 16, the day I was born, and it's going to be loaded into register 1. Now the process is repeated one more time, except we're using 03 because I was born in 2003, and that's going to be loaded into register 2. Now I'm using the opcode 5 to add the values stored in registers 0 and 1 and place them in register 3. Now I'm repeating this process, but I'm adding the values stored in registers 2 and 3 and putting them in register 4. Now I'm going to use opcode 3 to take the value in register 4 and store it in memory address 26 because that's the beginning of my home address. Then the code is automatically halted with the C000 command, and in memory address 26 is the value of in hex 19, which is 25 in decimal. You can see that the value 19 is located in memory address 26, and 19 in hex is 25 in decimal. When added together, 06, 10, and 03 in hex result in 19, which means that the code has been executed correctly. And then when you convert it to decimal, 16 plus 6 plus 3 is 25, and 25 is what 19 is when converted from hex to decimal. So it has been executed correctly. For the second part of this video, I'm going to be describing the different parts of the computer's operating system with a graphic that I drew. Alright, for the graphic, I'm going to go left to right and then top to bottom. So in the top left corner, we have the pink little box that shows the different types of softwares. So the first type is application software that just allows the user to perform a specific set of tasks. It allows them to carry out different functions, whereas the system software has the operating system and the utilities, and it creates the infrastructure for the application software. Alright, so now we're going to move on to the little gray square looking thing, and that is the operating system. So in our operating system, we have the user interface and the kernel. Alright, so in our user interface, we are going to be communicating with whoever's using the computer, and there are 2 types of user interfaces. There is the GUI, or the graphical user interface, and then there's also the text-based, or shell, which is also known as the terminal, that allows the user to input text commands and do things on the computer. The difference with the graphical user interface is exactly how it sounds. It's graphical, so instead of using text-based command lines, it uses icons and banners and things like that instead to communicate back and forth with the user. So now we're going to move on to the kernel, which is the heart of the operating system. It's responsible for doing all basic required functions. In the kernel, you have the file manager, memory manager, you have your scheduler and dispatcher, and all of your processes. I have read that it performs on a very basic level of functioning, and that it's also responsible for communicating between hardware and software. Now I'm going to go more in depth about some of the things that the kernel is responsible for. So if you look at the top left part of the kernel, you'll see in orange the file manager. So in your file manager, you have the directory and the directory paths. The directory is just a bunch of files that's created by the user. It could be a folder that contains other files and other folders or anything like that. Every single file, application on the computer, they are all stored in a directory of some sort. The directory path just shows like how you get to one directory from another. So you could have like your main username on the Mac, and then you can go further and go into documents. And then in documents, you'll have another folder. And then that folder, there's another folder. So that's what the directory path would look like. In the terminal window, you can see like what directory you're in by just typing pwd print working directory, and then that shows like users / Hannah / documents. Like wherever you are, it'll show the path to that directory. Now I'm going to go to the top right part of the kernel, the little green box that has the memory manager in it. Okay, just as it sounds, the memory manager is responsible for managing memory. It's responsible for allocating space in the main memory. Often, the memory manager is going to make it seem like your computer has more memory space than it actually does, because data is going to be going back and forth from the main memory to mass storage and mass storage to main memory, and that's called virtual memory. So now we're going to go down to the bottom of the kernel on my diagram and talk about the scheduler and dispatcher and the processes, because they all kind of go together. And then with that process, you'll see the process state, which is just the current status of the activity or the process that is being executed. The program counter just is a register that has the address of whatever is being executed at a certain time. General purpose registers are used to like temporarily hold information in regards to the process, but it's not something that is permanent. So when the process is in the state of being ready, then it's relocated to the main memory where it waits to be allocated time for the processes to be carried out. The job of the scheduler is to add processes to the process table when they need to be done, and then it removes completed processes once they've been executed. The dispatcher is what is responsible for allocating different time slices to processes in the process table. That way they can be completed. As time passes, if another process is waiting to be done, it'll sometimes like switch the allocation of time so that that process, if it's shorter, can be completed first, and then it goes back to the other process it was doing until that process is complete. And like I said, all of that is completed by the dispatcher because it allocates different slices of time to different processes. Now we're going to go down to the bottom to look at the disk storage. So the operating system is located within disk storage, and the disk storage is mass storage. Within main memory, we have two main parts, the ROM and the volatile memory. ROM is your read-only memory, and your volatile memory is going to be the RAM or random access memory. ROM is going to be where the bootloader program is located. The process of getting the operating system started is called bootstrapping. Whenever you turn your computer on, the CPU automatically runs the bootloader program in ROM. Once the bootloader program is running, it's going to transfer the operating system from mass storage to main memory. And for the last part of this video, I'm going to be demonstrating some different basic commands that you can use in the terminal window. pwd shows the path length to the current working directory. By typing cd documents, I'm going to change directories to my documents folder. So then the ls command prints a list of everything in the directory I cd'd into, so that's a list of everything in my documents folder. Now I'm using the make directory command, so I'm going to make a new Python projects folder. I can't type. There we go, Python project folder. And then I'm going to cd into the Python project folder so that the Python file I'm going to make is then automatically in that folder. So now I'm going to use the nano command to automatically write into a file that I'm going to call helloworld.py so that it's automatically made into a Python file. So then in this file, I'm just going to write exactly what I want the code to be. So print hello world, and then that's my code. Then to exit, I just do Control X, press Y, press Enter, and then I'm right back to where I was. So now I use the cat command to print letter by letter everything that's written in helloworld.py, so it even includes the things that would not normally be printed running a Python program. So then I use Python helloworld.py, and that just executes the code as written, so you can see the difference. One has letter by letter everything that you typed, and the other one just executes the code. Alright, now I'm going to do man ls, and that's just going to show you the manual for the ls command. So it shows like all the different things that you can do with ls when you're using it in the terminal window. So that's just the manual. It's super long. And then to exit, you just press Q. Boop. And now you're back to your normal screen. So now I'm just going to open up my Finder window, and you'll see that I have the Python projects folder in Documents. In that folder is the helloworld.py with all of the code that I wrote, which is just one little line. And that is all. So you can see that it worked. Hallelujah. Yay.